SodTalk is presented by AgPro.
This is the FSU football sod cemetery in its 62nd season, and it's become one of the great traditions of college football.
When you're near Doak Campbell, come by the sod cemetery and push the button, just like FSU football players do on their way into practice. You'll hear from legendary Seminoles who tell of the days when they brought home the victory sod from on the road, against the crowd and against the odds. For 26 seasons, Bobby Bowden led the Florida State football team. He won 2 national championships, 12 ACC championships, and 21 bowls, while leading the Seminoles to an amazing dynasty of 14 consecutive seasons, finishing in the top 5 nationally. And he won more Division I football games than any other head coach in history. In fall of 2020, Coach Bowden invited us to his home for SodTalk. He passed away less than a year later. This SodTalk was his last interview.
Coach, as you used to say, good to see you, buddy.
Still use that line. Everybody thinks they're my buddy.
There you go. It's a darn good line. Coach, in 1964, we had a darn good team. We beat Florida for the first time here.
Yep.
But we got a New Year's Day bowl to go to the Gator Bowl. And it was Florida State's first time in a big-time bowl.
Yep.
What did that mean to you all then?
That game probably put Florida State on the map. That game started off the Florida State history, you might say. Big-time bowl. Bill Peterson was the head coach, and he did a great job. It was a great year. You know, we got great defenses at Florida State now, but that one could stand up with any of them.
You returned to Florida State in 1976. You taught us to win again. And by 77, you went to Florida and we thrashed them. Tell us what 37-9 at Florida Field meant to you and the Seminoles.
Well, you can imagine how big it was, and it meant a lot because, again, number one, we got into a major bowl. Number two, we played a team with great history, and we beat them pretty solidly.
How did you handle having 2 good quarterbacks, Wally Woodham and Jimmy Jordan, and you merged them with great grace? How did you handle that?
I used to have coaches all over the country call me, Coach, how do you handle 2 quarterbacks? And I tell them, just like a baseball. I said, if one of them's hot, go with him. You know, if he cools off, go with the other one. And it worked real good.
Tell us about Big Ron Simmons in the middle at nose guard. Tell us a little about him and what he meant to Florida State.
My first year at Florida State, our defense was one of the worst in the nation. We put him at nose guard, and before the season was over, we were in the top 10 nationally because Ron Simmons pieced that thing together, boy.
Coach, if there was ever a sod game, 1980, I want to remind you, you took your team to Lincoln, Nebraska, and we win 18-14.
Oh.
What did it mean to FSU to beat Nebraska at Lincoln?
That was a big one, boy. Oh, I mean, when we won it, I could hardly believe we won it. They took a look, who is this team that beat Nebraska there? We won that ball game and started to go off of the field. The crowd formed a tunnel for us to walk through, and we walked through, and they congratulated us, tried to shake our hands with our players as we ran through, and I could never forget the hospitality of the Nebraska people.
Coach, we had a great sod game in 1988 at Clemson. Leroy Butler runs 78 yards, almost scores. Richie Andrews kicks it, and we beat Clemson. Tell us about the punt Ruski and why'd you call it then?
Okay, very good question. Now, if we don't make that first down, they just kick a field goal and win the doggone game. We put it in, and the dadgum thing worked perfectly.
Coach, in the national championship, 93, we're back to number 1, but we got to go to old Florida Field. Steve Spurrier has said that the swamp was the loudest it had ever been.
Yeah, it was loud.
Charlie Ward found his freshman roommate on a little flick pass. Warwick ran up your sideline, and the loudest Florida crowd ever went silent.
Charlie drops back, and the tight end's covered tight. He drops him the ball, and he outruns everybody on their team about 79 yards for a touchdown. And all of a sudden, we never heard of him. We never heard a word out of them the rest of the day, did we?
So many Gators get quiet fast.
I know it, man. And that's what happens. And it shows you how important momentum is. Charlie Ward at quarterback and Chris Winkie at quarterback. Both of them played for Florida State. Both of them won national championships, and both of them won the Heisman. You know what?
Yep.
They were completely opposite. They were completely opposite. Charlie never said a word. He whispered. When he would call plays in the huddle, everybody had to really get in there good to hear what he said. But Charlie, if he couldn't beat you with his arm, he'd beat you with his legs. But he's going to beat you. You know what? He just did a great job. And I'll say this for Chris, a lot of people don't understand it. He took us to 3 straight national championship games. Not many quarterbacks have done that.
Chris Winkie and Peter Warwick. Tell us about coming back to win that championship with those players.
Peter Warwick came to me. You want me to get this thing over with? Yeah, I really would like you to do that. He takes off down the left sideline. Winkie drops back and hits him in the end zone. It's impossible to catch that ball. There's no way he can catch it. But then he came down with the ball. He had so much talent, it was unbelievable. You could hardly tackle him.
And took the crystal ball home.
Oh, that's right, exactly.
You had a defensive coordinator from Alabama named Mickey Andrews.
Yep.
Tell us about Mickey Andrews and what he meant to your teams.
You know, I don't care how good you are offensively. You've got to stop the other team and get the ball back to your offense. And Mickey did a great job of that. Every year he was here, I got a lot of credit. And a lot of it should go to him.
Coach, I want to thank you for taking this time out under the magnolia tree to SodTalk with us. I think you know, but I just want to say again how much you mean to so many people, how many players, how many fans. You did it right, and we really appreciate you.
Well, Doug, Florida State started the cemetery, and the reason ours has been so well is because one man got behind it and made sure it was the tops, and we're all proud of it. We're proud of it.
Well, it's a lot of fun, and you certainly coached and taught them to do well. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us for SodTalk.
This episode of SodTalk was presented by AgPro.